Thank you. I appreciate the standing ovation, but certainly not necessary in a year where we have all of this that's been really painful for so many people in America, not the least of which are state employees. It's just nice to have that kind of a warm reception. Let me talk about a couple of things. First, I want to explain what's on my forehead. It's Ash Wednesday, the Catholic faith, so it's our sort of Day of Atonement. If you, so I was at a service, and then people sort of look at you oddly. But we were taught very young that these ashes are like sacred. And so you are very careful not to wipe your forehead, even if you're going to be in public meetings. So you began by explaining what they are. It takes a couple minutes of a speech. The second thing I want to say is I just came back from Washington, D.C., and we were the governors, the National Governors Association, with members of the cabinet. We were in a closed-door meeting with the president, a closed-door meeting with other members of his cabinet, the Secretary of Treasury, the Secretary of Education, the Secretary of Transportation, one of his senior policy advisors, Valerie Jarrett, and then there were a lot of other open meetings. I spent time with the Secretary of Interior, our own Ken Salazar, time with, had some one-on-one time with the Energy Czar for the administration. And she pointed out there's never actually been a female czar in the history of Russia. There's never a female czar. So they don't know what to call her, like empress, because there have been empresses where there wasn't an emperor, but there's never been a czarina when there wasn't a czar. So it's been kind of interesting, right, the naming of Carol Brown. But we spent a lot of time with cabinet people, and it was interesting to watch the president last night, because I think, my framework for just talking to any group, whether it's a group of state employees with Colorado Winds, or I'm about to go to Colorado Municipal League, whatever the group is, the framework here is very much, I think, couched by the president last night. He needed to hit a tone that was about our ability to survive this downturn. This is a very difficult place for us to be as a country, but I think that he did that. I think he showed optimism about our coming out, but he certainly, like most people in Washington, D.C., I think, does not think that, we've hit bottom and we're on our way back up. The question becomes when the turnaround comes. And it's certainly important for us in trying to look at that, because we have to do so much of our budgeting by forecasts and by looking out. Right now, we're proposing a budget for 09-10, and that could still change. We don't know if it'll change or not. And that's why this conversation is such a dynamic one. Because not many people in Washington, D.C. even can say, we can mark the day this is going to turn around. We can mark the time where there will be, our economy will return to the place of growth, and certainly robust growth. There's one person in Washington, D.C., he's an economist, he's not with the administration. He met with the National Governors Association, and he said, listen, we may not see normalcy in unemployment rates until 2013. We may not get back to a place of 5% unemployment until 2013. Now he's sounding one side of it. There are other people saying, listen, the turnaround's coming in late 2009. Bernanke said that he believes the turnaround's coming in the second half of 09. I think it's the best news I have heard out of the administration, and we hope that it's correct. But the point is, for our conversations, we rely upon forecasts, we rely upon economic forecasts, and it is helpful to have you as a conduit back to state employees to really be thinking about how we address challenges. For my purposes, even though this is in its nascent stages, this whole partnership that we have formed is still in its very earliest stages. It's been really helpful. When we were considering at first, if you remember back in September, when Wall Street cratered and it really looked like there were going to be some difficult times ahead in this year, we put in place hiring freezes. We had the ability to use Colorado Winds as our conduit about communicating with employees about why we had to do that. And it was fortunate that we did it, that we acted upon it at that time. The next decision was the 09-10 budget, and then by the time we were putting that together, it was really clear to us that we were in a downturn, and there were people saying, hey, this recession actually goes back to the last quarter of 2007 as a country, that we began in recession back then. And so we're looking at this saying, we're in the thick of a downturn, and so we understood that we were going to have to take pay for performance off the table, that there'd be no kinds of merit increases. And then it became clear we couldn't even do salary survey. And again, I think the way that state employees have accepted that is like other people have had to accept the difficult news that's just part of being in this economy. It's just the reality that we live in, that there are going to be impacts, and certainly not having any compensation above and beyond salary survey, then finding out there's no salary survey increase. Those are difficult things. Then we get to the next part, right? The real challenge for us becomes, okay, furloughs, health, life, and dental, layoffs, those kinds of issues. And as Mitch said, in our looking at that, what was really helpful was to have feedback from all of you and feedback from people who were part of the employee organization to say, we'd like layoffs to be the last thing. And what I'm telling you is we made them the last thing, and we haven't had to do layoffs. But we'll watch this economy very closely and hope to not get to a place where we do layoffs. I very much understood your preference for us to keep health, life, and dental in place, and if need be, and if we were going to have to find money in something that involved pay for employees, that it was in the area of furloughs. That's why you saw us recommend 3 furlough days this year, 5 next year. Just to give you some perspective on what's happening in other places, in California, the governor of California has a $43 billion budget hole that he's trying to fill. He is asking state employees to take 2 days per month off. So over the course of a year, 24 days, an entire work month that they will take off. And if you do the math on that, that's over 8% of their pay that they lose, actually, because they've been furloughed for that period of time. And so we know that states around the country have had different ways of reacting to this, and certainly different ways of employees being impacted, state employees being impacted. That's true here in Colorado. Through the decisions we've made, there's been an impact. What I ask is that we just keep this conversation open and that you understand it's dynamic. We could see a turnaround at the second half of 2009. If we do not, then we will still have to look at our budget. We'll have to balance our budget. We're constitutionally required to balance as we go, and we'll have to, make other decisions. We just want to make sure that this conversation is an open conversation and a two-way conversation. And we thank you that it feels to me, at least, like it's been that way so far, and we really do appreciate that. The other